Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here, my next Legend of Korra Book 4 Balance episode commentary. This one's going to be for K403, the Coronation. To sync up your copy of the episode with this commentary track, what you need to do is have the episode ready to start, press play, and have it open with the intro to The Legend of Korra, the standard. You see Kyoshi first on screen, and then you go through the avatars. You have the Earth, Fire, Air, Water bit. So have the episode ready to press play then. I'm going to stop speaking in a moment, and then when I kind of come back and start speaking again after that pause, you hit play, I'll hit play, and we'll both be synced up then with the commentary track. So, I'm going to stop speaking now, hit play when I start speaking again. Okay, so here we are with the Coronation, episode 3 of book 4, Balance. And yeah, this is I think a pretty solid episode. Perhaps not one of the best of book 4, but it's an important episode. Some really interesting things happen. I think the most memorable part of the episode is definitely Kuvira's speech when she kind of ruins Wu's coronation. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to kind of go through this one. It's not an episode I remember. I don't really remember a lot about what happens in this episode, so we'll see how things go. And obviously, like, the last episode ended with Korra and Toph, but I can't really remember how much happens between them in this episode compared to the next one. But we'll have to see as we go on. And yeah, we see Wu planning his coronation here with Mako, and we just see this is early book 4 Wu, so he's all, I'm royalty. We're going to have all this crazy stuff happen. We're going to have everything all about me. What he's not focusing on here is the people. That he should be more focusing on, like, what he's going to do once he gets into power to help the Earth Kingdom, because that's where all the problems are happening. So when Kuvira actually takes over his coronation and basically says, I stabilize the Earth Kingdom, I'm in charge here, she kind of has a point, because, like, this guy, like, is spending all this time organizing this coronation, not caring about the people. And you really see him make some progress, definitely, as time goes on in this season, with just caring more about people, and you definitely see that through his interactions with Mako and Mako's family, I think, especially. And Wu's crazy personality coming out still with the dancing. Royals love a ceremony. Very perfect statement from Raiko. And yeah, they're all looking for Korra, they don't know where she is. And now we get the reference that everyone's beginning to grow concerned about Kuvira, about prison camps and all this stuff. So you really see that a lot of people have been just like, ugh, let's leave her alone for now. She's helping stabilize the Earth Kingdom, no problem there. But once they realize, is she gonna give over power back to Wu now that she's done, they're growing a bit concerned. So you can sort of see that they let her go on a bit too. They gave her too long of a leash, so to speak. And here we cut to Korra and Toph. Really interesting dynamic. And we really see some of the flaws with Toph. Like, Toph isn't just the mentor to Korra in this season. She has some development of her own to do with her own family, and as a mentor as well, being a mentor to someone. And just this kind of very cynical view on helping the world for someone who was part of, like, arguably one of the biggest, we've saved the world teams in existence with Team Avatar. She seems to have a very cynical view on other people doing the same thing when she talks to Korra, like, the world doesn't need you. I was the police officer in Public City for a long time, and all I've experienced is just, things changing, but there's always criminals, but she's still willing to help Korra a bit, because she hates to see someone that's usually so tough be in such a bad position. So, good heart, but you could see where Toph has to develop herself in this season. And Bolin is back. Eska and Desna. We don't see them that much in this season, but it's always nice to see them again. Some very good Book 2 characters introduced. And I love that statement from Eska, that she thinks that Kuvira is Bolin's girlfriend, and she's impressed because Eska respects how threatening and powerful Kuvira is as a woman, so that's funny. And then the whole joke about Desna sleeping in a tub. And yeah, I suppose this is around the time where we really start to get the idea that Varric and Julie are both important characters this book. They're not just that funny duo in the background from time to time doing some stuff. Julie is talking a lot more this book, and Varric seems to be included in this big group. So there's some really important stuff going on here. In that sense, it's kind of an important episode, setting up who's important, who's not important, and so on. Reunion of brothers. And here's the thing, not a lot of people know exactly what Kuvira is doing. Even Bolin, we later find out, only knows the kind of humanitarian front that the Earth Empire actually are portraying to people. And as we've seen in even previous episodes, she's saying these harsh things to people behind the scenes on her own that not a lot of other people are seeing, like she was with the mayor of the town of Yai and stuff like that. And yeah, while Bolin's in this really cool position high up in the Earth Empire, Mako's Wu's bodyguard. And everyone's concerned about Korra still. Su Yin is here. Oh, and then lots of reunions happening here. Baatar and Su Yin. I do wish that Baatar was expanded more this book, because there's a lot of interesting stuff set up, but they really don't address the situation that caused him and Kuvira to leave the Metal Clan that much. Like, they really don't show you the moment Kuvira and Baatar got together and how they kind of separated. Like, it's more just like Kuvira and Su had a disagreement, Baatar went with her, and then they don't really address it all that much. But here's a really interesting scene here between the two, in that Wu was all like, okay, you're going to hand over power to me, it's going to be fun, I'll give you a good place in the room. And then she's just like, no, I've requested the presidential suite, and Wu's just like, I have that one, no, I got it, sorry. And they give it to her over him, and you really see who has the power here. Not Wu, Kuvira. She's the respected one, she's all about power. And just this idea that she's not royalty, but she got the room she wanted over him is just a big moment in terms of showing her power. And Wu's beginning to see that even though he's royalty, because of what happened in the Earth Kingdom, royalty isn't as big or royal as it has once been. A lot of the artifacts were like stolen, robbed, and you know, obviously there's not as much money, I suppose, in the royal family now. It's more important to stabilize the Earth Kingdom rather than do all these lavish ceremonies. So, interesting dynamic with Wu, definitely. I know a lot of people were very concerned about his character. Like, would they actually get to do anything with his character? But I think it's a really good, like, minor character arc, in that, like, he's introduced in this book with a problem, and they really address it in a really good way over the course of book 4. So I think he has a very satisfying arc for not the biggest player in the entire series. So I was happy to see that a more comedic character got the kind of resolution on a good arc. But yeah, sparring match, Korra versus Toph, and even though Toph is very old here, she's still got the moves. Or rather, Korra doesn't have the moves right now. But Toph is enjoying this, you know, getting to beat up an Avatar again. Misses doing it to Aang and stuff like that. You were thinking. Toph is the perfect teacher for Korra. Like, with Aang, he needed a teacher who was very understanding, like a Katara. But with Korra, she kind of does need a person who's more along her style of kind of fighting. Like, Tenzin would, in many ways, be a perfect teacher for Aang. But he's not really the most suited for Korra. But the tougher teacher here with Toph kind of ends up working for Korra. the swamp benders can't take a punch. I wish we got to see the swamp benders. They were fun. See what they're like. 70 years on, is the tribe bigger? Have they changed? Have they got technology or what? Interesting thing here, just Toph is somewhat spiritual now. She's in the swamp for a reason and has clearly learned a lot from even the last time we saw her in flashback as the Republic City Chief, like last book and even in book 1. That she's very spiritual. She's almost improved her powers of seeing through her earthbending even more so than it was before, where she can see through the swamp all the way to basically across the world. It's basically Izumi, first sighting of Izumi in the book. But yeah, Toph's powers, her knowledge of the swamp, very interesting. Again, as I said in I think first or second episode, last episode commentary, Toph's appearance, obviously is a reference to her first ever appearance in Avatar, was when Aang saw the vision of her in the swamp, even though she was only really introduced in person in the Blind Bandit in her hometown. Kyoshi, Medal of Freedom, and she gets it and is going to wreck it. The Royal Pinky Rings, yes. And yeah, he hands the mic over to her, and everything goes wrong. This is the big moment in this episode, in my opinion. And it's really interesting here the way she agrees in some ways with Zahir, and that the idea of queens, royalty is archaic. They just need a person who's a good leader to be in control. And so, in her mind, the best way to fix the Earth Kingdom is to, have her as the Earth Queen Empress. It's a big announcement, definitely. In terms of just the idea of Kuvira coming from this good place, wanting to help the people of her nation because of what happened to her in her past, I just struggle a little bit to fully understand where the villainous side of Kuvira really comes from. But the way, okay, I understand you think this is a good thing to create this Earth Empire, but why the threat to everyone else? Don't stand in my way. A different approach here, being a bit nicer about it, saying that, I don't agree with this guy being the new king, look at him. I'm more suited to be the leader, and just seeing where things go from there, rather than saying, oh, no, I'm in charge now, would be a better approach. And especially towards the end of the season, when, she marches on Republic City, it's a bit okay, but how do you go from just caring about your nation and wanting things to happen the way you want them to marching an army into a place that's not been part of your nation for 70 years? It's just a little bit more backstory was needed, a little bit more focus on the moments that really turned her into who she is. Kind of like, Amon and Tarlok, you gave them the backstory and it was big and you completely understand why they are the way they are. Not so much the case with Kuvira, but there's still some great scenes throughout the entire series with her here trying to convince Bolin to stay on her side, even though he's having doubts about her big statements she's just made. You see that Bolin is here for the good aspects that they're doing and really doesn't have his heart in it for this sort of conquering empire stuff. And she convinces him here, and it ends up he agrees with her eventually, and this turns him against a lot of his friends, his brother, his girlfriend, and eventually him making the right decision is a big moment in his arc to kind of making amends for that. But yeah, big confrontation here. This is effectively, a kind of mother-daughter scene because, Kuvira was an orphan, Su Yin took her in. That's effectively the way things are. And the argument is basically that the leaders came to Su asking her to basically stabilize the Earth Kingdom yourself. You're the leader of Zaofu. It's a very powerful city. You should stabilize things. But she didn't do that because she didn't want to basically be seen as this kind of dictator like Kuvira is right now. And so Kuvira took this as, you know, you've made the complete wrong decision. I'm against you now. I'm going to take your son away from you and, you know, start this empire and be evil. Like, it's just missing a little bit. It's a nice basic story, but more is needed to fully understand it. And again, I do think part of it comes down to the fact that this season does suffer from the fact that its budget was cut, and they were effectively down to 12 episodes in a clip show. If Remembrances wasn't a clip show and they had those 22 minutes to kind of distribute throughout the rest of the season, I think the moments you add back in are, you know, some of these other character stuff, more development for Batar, more development for, you know, the whole Sue Kuvira backstory, and some of this other sort of stuff. But didn't turn out that way. And yeah, everyone's disagreeing with Kuvira now that she's made her big statement, and Bolin just sees the good side of Kuvira and hasn't seen the bad. She's been very careful to only display one side of herself to Bolin. And Bolin isn't... Mako isn't taking any of what Bolin's saying here. And ultimately, you know, like, Mako's like, what are you talking about? Kuvira and Korra are nothing alike. But Bolin's a little bit closer than you think, because they make that actually a plot point towards the end of the season, that the two are fairly alike in terms of their strong-willed, you know, women, you know, that will do things that people disagree with because they're passionate about them. Obviously, Korra doesn't take things as far as Kuvira does, but the comparison is kind of there. I think the problem with this comparison that Bolin's making is that he has only seen one side of Kuvira and hasn't seen how bad Kuvira actually can be. And yeah, the two brothers are at odds here. And because of this, Mako's a bit more open to the friendship with Wu here, so that's interesting. So Korra's taking a beating from Toph, and she's just loving it. The voice actor they got for older Toph is like perfect. I don't really know the name off the top of my head, but it's really well done. They really nailed these kind of characters who we most know for them in like 12-year-old Toph, but like seeing like effectively, well, what age is it here? 82-year-old Toph is pretty fun. And yeah, Korra still has some of the metal within her, it's revealed here, and also that Toph is kind of on another level at metal bending than Sue and Lin is another interesting idea. But I think by the end of the kind of... I suppose it's one of those things where, like, Toph can sense this other metal, but as far as Sue is aware, she got it all out, and then Lin, of course, wouldn't be the sort of character at all to perform these sort of delicate metal bending maneuvers. And we're really freaking out here about, you know, his kind of privilege about, I'm the king here, respect the brooch, and disagrees with Kuvira. You know, definitely this is a kind of bit like, do you really need to do this whole sulking angle with Wu? But it leads to a pretty interesting scene with Mako and Wu, and Mako could be a bit more serious and speak openly to him. And yeah, it's just interesting that Republic City has these type of places, these little bossing say, and he's so kind of childlike here that he's willing to just to have his dream come true. He's gonna be really mean to this kid and just live this out on this small kid's throne. It's pathetic, but it's all he really knows, so you don't hate him too much for it. And Mako just points out the obvious, like, she's actually a leader and cares about the Earth Kingdom. You don't. Like, it's the obvious thing. Mako just pointing out the complete honest truth to Wu here. Thought it was harsh, but Wu needs someone to say that to him. I like the more serious Wu. Like, you don't really spend too long with him when he's just a complete idiot. But yeah, Korra just like straight away, okay, the metal's in me, take it out. But we know that just getting this out is not going to fully help. It may help physically, but there are some mental things there that she needs to get over. So you sort of know going into this scene that even if Toph takes this out, there's still going to be some stuff that she still needs to work on. And yeah, it's this idea that, to some extent, Korra almost is stopping herself from healing fully because she's afraid of getting hurt again, even though deep down she really wants to become the Avatar again. And Korra she is left to basically do this on her own. Toph is like, no, this is something you need to do on your own. If you're not going to let me do it, you have to do this. And Toph is pretty much spot on here, basically just saying what I just said there. All your issues. And yeah, I almost forgot this was a part of book 4, but yeah, Iki, Milo, Jinora being sent on their kind of first solo mission. It's there was so much hope here because Master Airbender Jinora with her tattoos is gonna lead this group to find Korra. It's perfect because basically the Air Kids are almost effectively Korra's siblings. That's the way they're effectively treated, even though that's not exactly the case. They treat her like a big sister, and she treats them like, yeah, her younger siblings. So it's perfect if this is going to be how kind of Korra's brought back. And then a setup of this whole mysterious thing. What's Kuvira doing manipulating spirit vines here? Which was a big, a lot of theories flying around the place about what exactly she was doing here with getting Varric to work on the spirit vine. So a lot of stuff kind of put into play here. Obviously the big moment of the episode is Kuvira basically revealing to everyone else in the series effectively that, look, this is what I'm doing, I'm Earth Empire, that's what I'm about. And you have, everyone turning on Bolin, you have Korra still struggling with her kind of healing, but there are people now being sent out to actually find her. So they kind of put a time limit on things that her recovery is going to have to pick up fairly soon. And some of the stuff with Wu's character arc being put into play. So solid episode, not the best, but pretty good. So yeah, that's been the commentary for K403, the Coronation. I'm going to try to maybe get another commentary out tomorrow, but for sure I definitely want to get at least 2 commentaries out next week. Just things that I didn't really have any handle on just happened and kind of stopped me from doing multiple ones each week. Like sudden comic previews last week, St. Patrick's Day this week, and so on. But hopefully next week I will get a couple of commentaries out because I really want to get these kind of out there and done so I can start on other video series. So other than that, thanks for watching this one, and bye.